Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today is February 24th, 2025. And today on our call, we have the CFO, Stephen Glaser from PoolSafe Inc. PoolSafe trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol POOL, P-O-O-L, and it also trades on the OTC under PFFEF. The company trades at 3.5 cents with about 114 million shares outstanding, or about a $4 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, thanks a lot, Trevor. Stephen, great to have you here with us today. Now, PoolSafe is a company that came up on our annuals, our cheapies with a chance list that you may or may not know about, but a company that fundamentally became intriguing to us. We've been kind of following the name for a couple of years, but it looks like it looks to us like you might be at a bit of an inflection point. So happy to have you here to tell us more about the business. And so I'm going to leave it to you to sort of give us call it a business summary or a bit of an elevator pitch to tell us what PoolSafe's all about.
Sure. Thank you for having me, and good to meet all of you by name. PoolSafe I RTO'd in April of 2017. I was brought on as a consultant to take the company public, raise capital, get sponsorship, etc. It was an 8-month effort, and during that time, I helped the founder and CEO develop a more fulsome business plan, raise capital, and April of 17, we went live. The company is in the hospitality industry. Specifically, we provide what we call a functional piece of furniture to resorts, hotels, water parks, and in some areas, cruise ships. The product acts like a table, effectively. The table provides a value add to our partners' customers. The Lounge Genie is what we like to call it, and the Lounge Genie comes with features such as a lockable safe, a service call button that goes to a 22-inch screen, teleprompt that resides in food and beverage or a service kiosk. It has a USB charger that is powered by a solar panel that is inside the safe that gives the customer of our partners the ability to fast charge electronic devices. It acts like a table, so it's flat. It's got a area that you can put lotion, towels. It's also got a cooler function that allows it to keep your beverages cool. So we would like to call it your personal poolside attendant. The model was built such that it is a recurring revenue model whereby we provide the product to our partners at no cost under a 4-year revenue share contract. Every time a cabana or premium seating is rented by our partners' customers, we get $15 of that rental. If the sun shines and all the cabanas are full, it's a great day for us. It's a great day for our partners. If it's raining and there's nobody attending the pool or at the water park, we don't make any money if our partners don't make any money. So we're aligned with our partners. Over that 4 years, if we improve the product, which we look to improve every day of every month, such as new locks, new software, we provide that for free because it is a true partnership. And over that 4 years, as the product evolves and improves, we will go out to our client sites, we'll upgrade the product and make sure that they're ready to go for the season. After a 4-year revenue contract relationship expires, we tend to see about 93 to 95% renewal. So it's a sticky business. the revenue is recurring. And in the end, the objective is to get free cash flow to give back to our shareholders.
Perfect. Stephen, maybe talk about the addressable market. Give us a sense of size, how much you've got deployed right now, and then I'll follow up with a couple of other questions there.
Sure. So I think I could probably go back to COVID, which was a total reset. Actually anybody, most anybody was affected by COVID, us specifically in the hospitality industry. At that time, we had just under 200 units in the field. We had to restructure the balance sheet, get rid of the debt, raise senior secured financing to get us back up on our feet. From that time, we have added a total, this is based on September 30th financials, we have 1,326 units at that time in the field, all generating revenue. The majority is a seasonal revenue, which means that for the water parks that open some as early as March, the majority by Memorial Day, close at Labor Day, some into October, November, depending where you are in North America. So the season is very important to us because unfortunately, we generate the lion's share of our revenue during that small window of time. It's very lucrative, I might add, and the payback on the product that we put in the field generally is a year or less over a 4-year revenue share contract.
And so let's talk a little bit more about that. So one of these units, what do they typically run for? Like, what do they cost you? And then what's the average sort of rental per day when it's in use?
So it really is dependent on the site. I mean, we built the business model that we would get 3.5 rentals a week times 4 weeks times 5 months. So anybody out there who's got a calculator, I don't, that would be 14 rentals a month times 5 months. That is where we would want the payback of our upfront costs to be recaptured. Majority of that happens in less than a season, but on smaller parks in more rural areas, the payback is a year. And in some instances like Hawaii, we can get a payback in 3 months. The cost of the product, I'm not going to give away our secret sauce, but we have a bill of material. I'd like to actually divert that. So when we do these conversations with shareholders, with investors, we like to advise those that are interested in our business model to understand that the payback, albeit is 1 year, as the product evolves and as the bill of material, which shot up during COVID due to supply chain, has dramatically come down. So therefore, that payback that I alluded to that is in 1 season can actually be much sooner than that based on our efforts to reduce the bill of material. The bill of material effectively is our IP, because the question that everybody asks is, how do you defend this? What's your IP? Well, coming from the world where I've marketed a lot of small businesses, there's a lot of people that say, oh, we're going to capture 50% market share. We're going to conquer the world. To go back to the question that you asked, Paul, about the size of the market, if we get 2% of the market, and that's hotels, resorts in areas that people go not to sightsee, but go to lie in the sun, enjoy their time by the pool, that is a market that 2% could capture. And this is old math. This is math from 2022. There's always a delay on what goes on in these industries, but that's 50,000 units. 50,000 units under the scenario that I provided, which is 3.5 rentals, over a period of 5 months, 3.5 rentals a week, that's plus $72 million. We don't sell any product in or we don't revenue share in Canada. We tend to choose, right now we're focused on our backyard, which is North America, but we do have clients in Puerto Rico. We have clients in Jamaica, Grand Turks. We've sold into China. We tend to, if we do sell the product, we sell it into jurisdictions that are very hard to service for us. So we prefer to revenue share, but we will sell the product. There are certain hotels that prefer to buy as opposed to revenue share, and we sell the product outright for $3,000 US.
Maybe give us a sense of what's the sales process? How do you sort of engage with one of these resorts or customers? And what's usually
It's
I
not an
imagine
easy
it's not
sell.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not selling French fries.
Yeah.
We're not upselling, you from a mid-sized Diet Coke to a supersized Diet Coke. This is a product that is important as a value add to our partners, but is a product that, they don't factor into their CapEx. One, because they may not even know we exist. And two, because it's very expensive to run a water park, to keep maintenance at a pool. So their CapEx budget is very, very tight. And therefore, our revenue share model works perfectly for them because there's no CapEx.
And what's the maintenance required on behalf of the customer? Is there anything they have to do to sort of make sure it stays in good state? Okay.
Yeah, they need to clean it, right?
Sure.
So household kitchen cleaning products is all we ask of them, because sometimes somebody will spill a Coke. If it gets caught into the call button, that can be sticky. The product itself, we'd like to say, is bulletproof. It's a non-corrosive product, so it's made out of stainless steel and aluminum. We are starting to manufacture some of the componentry ourselves, so we're 3D printing some of the components that go into the unit. As I alluded to before, we have supply chain partners that exist in numbers like 60 to 70 that provide individual components to the product. Because it's non-corrosive and because, as we say, it's bulletproof, we use car paint, can sit in the sun for 10 years just like a car. It's not moved around a lot. It's got wheels so that you can lift it, and as you turn your chair into the sun, you can move the product side by side, but it's 52 pounds. So it's something that you're not going to want to lift and take somewhere else, and from a security perspective, you're not going to see a lot of people putting that on their backs and walking through a Hilton hotel and, taking it out of the park. So insofar as the maintenance is concerned, every now and then there may be an issue with a lock. There may be an issue with a lift lid. That tends to be, due to customer, I wouldn't like to say abuse, but not treating it with kid gloves. Not that it needs to be treated with kid gloves, but if you yank on the door for the safe, and if you lean on it or sit on it, you can see some problems that could arise from that. I can tell you, as crazy weather was going into Texas, and we have a lot of product in Texas, we got a call from one of our sites just outside of Houston that advised us that, a tornado came through and that all our lounge genies were out sunbathing. And the only thing that happened to it is a tree fell on one of it and damaged the top.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can advertise your tornado proof.
Yeah, to a point, I suppose.
To a point, I guess, yeah. As long as trees don't fall on them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Maybe talk a little bit of competition. Clearly, you guys have identified that there's a market here. So, is there what's a competitive landscape look like?
So competition is good. So from that standpoint, we don't look at that as it being a negative if somebody did come into our market. But right now, there's nobody in our market. Right now, we compete with lockers. So if you've ever been to a water park or if you've ever been to a big resort, they'll provide you with lockers that might sit at the front of the gate or might sit in a designated area. That locker is to put your valuables and are commonly used. But this is a personal safe, right? That offers you a lot of different functionality. It sits by you. It's not at the front of a gate. There is nobody that provides a product that has as many functions as us. There may be others that have little Kevlar football-like product that straps to the back of a lounge chair that allows you to lock your goods, that is very close to you, but it won't give you the other functionality.
Right.
So I don't want to say we're fortunate because, as I said, I think competition is good, but right now there's nobody doing what we're doing.
And let's talk about the features again, because there's some interesting stuff here that, so it's a power charger for all sorts of electronic devices. I can think of my kids, you know, obviously at the pool with their, you know, trying to get their iPad down there. But phones and things like that, you can connect. I know that that's a big issue when I'm sitting around the pool. But the ability to order food and drink and stuff like that. Maybe talk a bit about that. I know when we had our last discussion, you know, it actually helps increase sales, is my understanding. So
thank you for teeing that up.
yeah, maybe some more discussion around that sort of stuff. So it's not just the incremental, you know, revenue that's generated from the unit itself. There's some spillover effects as well.
Yeah, the spillover is actually, you know, pretty dramatic. We got some feedback early on from one of our long-standing clients that it's a service call button, so it doesn't allow you to order food. It's a button that requests service, primarily for food and beverage. So when you're sitting by the pool, and we've maybe not we all, but you know, I've been to Vegas, and to get somebody's attention by the pool is exceptionally difficult. So you either have to have a lot of servers out there, or you have to identify the customer quickly enough to get to them before they, you know, get a little angry. With the service call button, we provide a 22-inch touchscreen that goes into food and beverage. When the customer presses that call button, it comes up on the screen in food and beverage, excuse me, and it says that Lounge Genie number 5 is looking for service. It will count down the amount of time it takes for somebody to acknowledge that the customer is looking for service. And once they do, they press the touch screen. It goes into a separate queue, and it starts to count down how long it took for that individual who acknowledged it to get somebody out there to actually take the order. So it's a good way for our partners to understand the turnaround time in providing service to their customers. Now, I alluded back to one of our longstanding customers who told us that in the first year, we increased their food and beverage by $100,000. So it was almost 30% increase in their F&B revenue. But they had to embrace it because now you have 56 units, and you know, they're not all pressing them at the same time. But if you have that functionality, you expect that you're going to get service very quickly. Therefore, getting runners, not extra order takers, but getting runners who are delivering the product, whether it's a drink or a burger or whatever it may be, is very important. So we saw that this early on partner of ours embrace that by hiring more runners, and that enabled them to serve more food and deliver better service. So that is a big function, and it is a very, very large part of our product offering. There are some sites that actually don't want the service call button. I would say maybe 10% that want it capped, and that's because they want people to go to the food and beverage area. They feel that they could get greater sales and upsell on other, you know, peripheral products.
So you've had the product in the market for a number of years now. I imagine there's customer feedback as well. Is there any sort of upcoming innovations or ideas generated from your customers in terms of what features you should add or tweak?
So we constantly improve the product, and by that we mean functionality and, as I alluded to earlier, it being bulletproof, meaning it's always going to work. It's always going to be there for you. It's not going to cause you headaches. And from that standpoint, we continue to evolve the software such that we can identify the temperature at the site, where we can identify when the safe has been opened, the user interface with the actual product. That's more for us.
Mhm.
The data that we can get back on service, which we will warehouse once the software is completed, and we've been designing the software now we had to stop with the current development because the partner wasn't in line with what our expectations were. But the current version of the software that represents the ability to warehouse information, potentially be another revenue stream or a value add to our partners, that's been ongoing for about a year. And we expect that we're going to see that integrated in 2026. We've done a lot of upgrades. Last year, we did 350 upgrades on new doors and locks. We were able to source a lock out of the UK that was 100% waterproof, that the functionality for our partners to use was very easy, very much like you would get a lock when you're in your hotel room. So we continue from that standpoint to ensure that as we like to suggest that it's bulletproof, we have to live by that. And we have to make sure that every component in there is doing its job and doing its job properly and can last for the 4 years under the revenue share agreement. We are currently looking at designing a new unit that potentially could add an additional solar panel, and that would allow us more power, which would allow us more functionalities.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. A four-letter word that's come up a lot lately, tariffs. Not exactly 4 letters, but it feels
Depends on
like
how
it.
you spell it.
Exactly, yeah. Do you see any impacts from tariffs? Where do you get the majority of your sort of components, and how do you see this playing out here?
So the majority of our components are local suppliers. The locks, as I alluded to, are out of the UK, but drop shipped into the United States and then from the United States delivered to us. There are elements of the componentry that under the tariffs, depending on what our government decides to do retaliatory, shouldn't really affect us. And if it does affect us, we're gonna source product elsewhere. And redundancies are very, very important when you have a supply chain that is large as ours. And therefore, we don't have one metal supplier. We have several. We work with one who has been an awesome, metals provider. But we have additional sources of metals, additional sources of aluminum, buttons. Solar panels are the only thing that come from China. Just because micro solar panels aren't made in North America. China is literally owns, the patent to that. I'm not quite sure why, but it's the only place that you can get them. But we warehouse a lot of product that we think potentially could be an issue due to political noise. The tariffs themselves, because we don't sell the product, and we've looked into information that's been provided by the Export Development Canada, by the BDC, by various economists. Under our current revenue share partnerships, we don't believe that the tariffs, which Trump announced about an hour ago, are going to go into effect.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay, let's talk a bit about the financials. You said that you come out of COVID, sort of, challenging times for sure, but you guys have been able to kind of right-size the business. You're obviously revenue generating, and starting to look like a lot of the metrics are going in the right direction. Maybe talk about the current balance sheet if you can, and anything you can around financials and capital requirements, things like that.
Absolutely. So the questions that I see that are coming in, I'm going to leave as.
Yeah, we'll catch those in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that we get to all of them, and I'll let you be the conduit of the message.
Absolutely.
And because I just diverted my attention to a question that I saw on screen, can you please repeat the question that you asked?
Let's talk about the financials, like
Okay.
the status of the financials right now. Yeah.
So let's go back. This year we grew our revenues and actually I got to be cautious about that because we haven't published Q4. Let's go back. The year prior to that, we grew our revenues by 50%. The year prior to that, 100%. The year prior to that, 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if the current revenue growth in the most published annual financials remains the same. I mean, we target that type of growth. So we really, if we get it anywhere plus and minus 50% revenue growth, we're pretty happy. A lot of that falls to the bottom line after year one. So it really, really is a cash flow machine once you get size. Now, the question we often get is, well, when do you become cash flow positive? Well, if we grow our unit base by 50% every year, and we're increasing our revenue by 50% every year, it's a harder ask to get to cash flow positive because we're throwing as many units with a 1-year payback into the field as we're growing our revenues by 50%. That flips when we get probably another, and all of you people out there, please don't quote me on this, although it's now being recorded, but that flips pretty soon, meaning that another year of similar growth, whereby let's say the 1,326 that we published in September of 30 grows at 50%. So let's say another 700 units, and now we got over 2,000 units in the field. Now we're starting to get to a point where we're generating more cash flow than we are in outlaying to put new product. Many of you would have seen that we just paid down $840,000 worth of debt. We were able to do that because some of our very supportive investors converted 5-cent warrants, and we were able to capture a penny and a half on every conversion, and it allowed us to pay down that debt, which obviously reduces our interest obligation, which is great. I'm very hopeful that the debt that expires in September of 2025 will be paid back in a similar manner. And I suspect that we may actually even be able to retire more debt than that based on the upcoming revenue generated in 2025. So the financials look pretty good. We were debt heavy. It is something that, unfortunately, the capital markets haven't been as kind to us, and debt is an easier way to go. And because we generate a lot of revenue, or we're starting to generate a lot of revenue, the interest burden was manageable and certainly will become far more manageable as we continue to pay it down. The one aspect of the debt comes from the $3.5 million line of credit we have. So we have a credit facility that we're allowed to draw down on every time we aggregate more than $100,000 worth of orders. A portion of that revenue in principal and interest is paid back every quarter from the revenue that's generated within that quarter. So we're constantly paying it down, and we're constantly drawing it down. But $3.5 million, and I can't remember exactly what it was as of September 30, but let's say we have $1 million of that. We have $2.5 million outstanding on that credit facility, and that really is a godsend.
And if you had more available capital, does it change your business at all? Like, can you grow faster if you had more, let's say, more equity, or
It's a good question. I think we do. I think because we have the credit facility such that it allows us to draw down more than just the bill of material costs, because we need to also factor in, we go out and we install and train as well. So if we get an order in Alabama, our techs go out to Alabama, install 30 units, train the staff. We got to get them there. We got to get them back. So when we do a drawdown, it's not only for the bill of material, it's also for the travel of installation and training. There is also a buffer in there for overhead, because there's a portion of our overhead that is attributed to the build itself. Those would be our integrators, that, put the product together. So all the components get drop shipped to our facility in North York. They're all cut to spec, whether they're from molds on the plastic or whether they're from molds on the metal side. But everything is a puzzle. We've made the puzzle pretty easy, from the standpoint, if I can put one together in 45 minutes, then you probably could put together in 20 minutes. So
My wife would doubt, my wife would argue with that on that.
well, there's always somebody who can do it better than I can. I know that. And we got the guys who do that. So
awesome. Awesome. A little bit about the stock. I can't remember what Trevor said in terms of the numbers of shares outstanding, but maybe give us 113 there it was, yeah.
A little over 113 million. We just issued 23 million new shares. I can tell you, as a guy who came from the investment banking world and, corporate finance stuff, dilution is always an issue. And I would like to suggest that, considering that we went through COVID, we had to restructure the balance sheet, we had to convert a lot of debt into equity. We needed to finance this business from COVID 2020, 2021 up to today. The dilution has not been that bad. Insofar as the stock price is concerned, there are individuals who say we need to spend more money on marketing the story. And at this time, we haven't spent any money in the last 2 years on investor relations. We've been able to access the market from a capital perspective, such that we could do it through debt. There is the warrant overhang, which is never a great thing to see. But if the warrants are in strong hands, in hands that want to own the stock as we build the business, then it's not an overhang. It's just a strong shareholder base. And we have a very strong shareholder base, which I probably could identify 80% of 113 and change million shares out there.
And as far as that shareholder base, sort of technically, insiders, what percentage would you say is owned by insiders?
Insiders meaning myself.
I guess officers, directors, that's sort of the classic insider. Yeah.
Well, now that we added 23 million new shares, I'm going to have to do some math, but I would suggest greater than 20%. It was obviously higher than that. But, as I mentioned earlier, our shareholders have been very important, believed in what we're doing. We're a very small team. We have 7 employees. We have a lot of wonderful contractors, a lot of people who provide us assistance, who we consider partners, but that are not on the payroll. We don't, as you and I talked about some time ago, we don't need more Stephen and Davids. We have executives. I happen to wear a bunch of hats. I'm CFO, I'm COO, I'm corporate secretary. You do what you got to do.
Absolutely.
We need more integrators. We need more service people. We need to make sure that our partners are happy and their customers are happier. So that doesn't mean that we need to be top heavy. It needs to mean that we have an org chart that goes a mile left and a mile right, and maybe 20 feet high.
Yeah. A standard small company. That's you got to wear a lot of hats to make it work.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Stephen, what are the greatest challenges facing the business right now? What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night?
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a sip because I can think about it. Everything keeps me up at night. I'm old and I don't sleep well. So that would be one factor, I suppose. Listen, we have deadlines. We have a small season. We're very, very hopeful that we're going to be putting product into Australia this year. That's, a 180 from our seasonality perspective. More product in areas that are open longer. We have a lot of product in Florida, in Southern Florida. We're starting to establish a pretty good client base in California. But getting that product to our customers so that they can open their doors, that these can be in place and received by their customers, may be the biggest thing. Listen, you're always going to get the Trumps throwing a curveball at you,
Mhm.
things that you're never going to plan for. And you just got to be ready to act.
Mhm.
I, I would say, the business is performing well.
Mhm.
It's not mature, but from a product perspective, it's mature. You asked me earlier, what's the sales cycle?
Mhm.
It's a long sales cycle. We spent years going to trade shows for the water park and amusement industry.
Mhm.
We just partnered last year, in 2023, but really I'll explain in detail. We partnered with a group called Avendra. Avendra is the largest buying group in North America for the hotel market. They have 17,000 hotels that when they need shampoo, when they need linen,
Mhm.
when they need anything, they
Mhm.
go to Avendra, they pool that PO so that, you now got 1,000 hotels ordering
Right.
shampoo, and they get a cost benefit on that.
Right.
Avendra partnered with us, and we're their first revenue share partner, whereby if we put product into their client hotels, they get a portion of our revenue. Now, the access to 17,000 hotels, albeit it's not 17,000 hotels where you go sit in the sun. So
Sure.
we spent 6 to 9 months mapping out who would be the target in this North American infrastructure. So North America being the United States, being Mexico, Caribbean. So we've mapped that out. We've had a couple really wonderful meetings with some of the senior people and regional managers. We've yet to really tap into that, but our focus is starting to go towards the hotel market. Right now, I would say, I don't know the exact percentages, but certainly the majority of our product are in these water parks, and there's a lot of hotels that actually now have water parks.
Mhm.
So you go to a resort, you sit by the pool, and your kids go to the water park.
Yeah.
So we've accessed a lot of those relationships, and the hotel market is something that is just coming on board. Maybe what keeps me up on night is that market embraces us like the water park market,
Mhm.
and then it's guns a-blazing, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Different
then
problem. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Of
And
course. Of
we'll
course.
figure it out. Figure it out, but
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, Stephen, let's jump on some of the questions that have come in. I know we've tackled some of them, so I won't necessarily repeat them here. But Curtis asks about any need for funding to get you through the 2025 year.
Hi, Curtis. Based on the access to capital that we have today, no, we do not need additional capital. Outside of what we've identified, which I alluded to, we have a wonderful credit facility structured at 8%. So in my mind, that's extremely reasonable debt. And that's $3.5 million that we can access, as I said, as we aggregate a lump of new orders. We do have warrants, which, as we said, converted $840,000 worth of net, I guess it's not revenue, net funding that allowed us to pay off that debt. We still have some warrants that could be converted, which again would net us some operating cash. So with those things that we have, right in front of us, we're not going to need to go and access the capital markets. If this conversation that we just had about Avendra comes into play, and the uptake is big, that changes the scenario, and therefore, we'd have to look at that more deeply. And if that happened, I don't think anybody would complain about raising capital to put in 1,000 new units.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, next question is, with the product being a recurring business model, why are revenues so low in Q4, Q1? I think I know the answer, but maybe I'll let you explain
I'll let
again.
you answer, Paul.
Well, it's a seasonal business. You just finished
Yes.
saying that, right? So the bulk of it is, if you're catching the summer season when everybody's at these water parks, then of course come the slower winter time, you're not going to do that. Do you sell into Mexico, for example? I'm heading down to Mexico for spring break. I imagine, there's I'm going to be sitting by the pool. Do you sell outside of you know, sort of US and
I'll give you a brochure.
I might be
So
able to sell for
a
you.
lot of Mexico is all inclusive,
Hmm.
and therefore they don't upcharge you for
Hmm.
special seating. So it's a tougher market to play into. We have sold to hotels like Mandalay Bay, Atlantis, Bahamas, Atlantis, China. We've sold some to Norwegian Cruise Line for their island in the Belize. So we're trying to. It's a massive market, and North America is a company maker.
Hmm.
Not that we want to limit ourselves to North America, because Europe has it's a huge opportunity for us.
Hmm.
But we're still growing. We have the occasional growing pains, and being able to partner with more local, i.e., United States, North America, it's easier for us to react.
Hmm.
Um, so Mexico is an opportunity for us, but it would have to be outside of the model, which is an all-inclusive model.
Hmm. I gotcha. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, next questions come in. Revenue share. What percentage of revenue is from rental share and which is from one-off sales?
So it actually has changed a lot. And over the last couple years, I'm not even sure in 2024. I don't even think in 2024 we sold any. They were all revenue share. I think we added just under 600 units, 545, something like that. And that was all revenue share.
Hmm.
We are starting to see a little bit more of the direct sale. And
Hmm.
you know what? A direct sale is great. It's $3,000 US in our hands today, which allow us to grow the business.
Hmm.
But if you discount that back from 4 years to today, and you just do a discounted cash flow on that,
Hmm.
revenue share all day long. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine any of our investors would want us to lose that percentage
Yeah.
gap, even though 3,000 a bird in the hand, right? That's a great
Sure.
thing.
Hmm.
But over the long run, recurring revenue is the way to go. And as
Hmm.
I alluded to at the outset, our objective is to be a dividend paying company. Our
Hmm.
objective is to, have thousands, if not tens of thousands of units in the field,
Hmm.
which generate free cash flow after year one payback, give or take.
Hmm.
So years 2, 3, 4 are wonderful. And why wouldn't we give that money back to our shareholders?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, if
great.
we could make more money with it, if
Hmm.
we could take a portion of that and make a new product, you
Hmm.
know, and we think that we could generate more money by investing more money, then
Hmm.
we would.
Hmm.
But there's an element of that that needs to go back to our shareholders,
Hmm.
who funded us, who believed in us, and who wanted this kind of recurring revenue, dividend dividend paying stock.
Hmm.
We partner with groups that are 4 or 5 star hotels, resorts. Um, that recurring revenue is protected.
Hmm.
Everybody worries about, oh, you got recurring revenue. What happens if ABC company, you lose them and 20% of your revenue is gone? These are 4-year contracts secured, and partnered with really high-end partnerships. And therefore, the model makes sense.
Hmm.
If it wasn't a sticky revenue generating model, then I think that I may approach this conversation differently,
Hmm.
but it is sticky. And
Hmm.
it is something that, as long as our customers, our partners and their customers love the product the way that we think they do,
Hmm.
then there's going to be a lot of free cash flow.
Hmm. And can you give us a bit of a margin profile? Like what I imagine once you've got the unit out there, what's the ongoing cost of just having it there? Like what's your gross
So
margin on that recurring revenue?
huge.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, we went out last year and spent just under 100 grand on putting new doors, locks
Mhm.
into the field with our current partners that had older locks that were good, but not great. And
Mhm.
we found great. So we spent the money to go out there as we promise our partners and upgrade the product with great.
Mhm.
You know, so that was an additional 100 grand, right? That eats into your margins when you're a small company.
Mhm.
But in the long run, that's going to generate great goodwill
Sure.
and higher margins down the road. The margins are large, you know, and after year one, if the product is as bulletproof as I'm suggesting it is,
Mhm.
there's not an ongoing cost.
Right.
You know, I can tell you we're in the midst of, you know, reaching out to our current partners who've added more cabanas. They want more units. You know, part of the sale that's difficult is because it is a industry that turns over a lot. You
Mhm.
make great relationships,
Right.
and then those relationships go to another hotel or to a bigger water park.
Sure.
But if you have good relationships, then you maintain the current park or
Mhm.
hotel, and then you have an opportunity to upsell where
Excellent.
your friend just went.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
helps us in the sales process.
Mhm. That makes sense. That makes sense. What's the average lifespan of one of these units? Apart from the odd bit of fixing, whether it's a lock or something, how long do these sit out there?
So they're good for the 4 years.
Mhm.
We depreciate them over 3 years, declining balance.
Okay.
I think it's 20% declining.
Mhm.
There's a portion of it that can be reused. The
Mhm.
metals, by way of example. Plastics tend to get beat up.
Okay.
We can sometimes reuse the boards. They may need to be reflashed and
Mhm.
then redesignated for the client because everybody's pool deck and infrastructure is different. So there's some work that goes into that.
Mhm.
But based on our auditor's request, it's a 3-year declining balance. And
Mhm.
then, you know, some of it will get reused and other, primarily the plastics, go by the way of the dodo bird. We recycle them as a good,
Mhm.
you know, environmental, but
Yeah.
I hope that
Gotcha.
answered your question. I'm not
No,
sure if
it does. Yeah. No. That's exactly it. Just the sort of the useful lifespan of one of these units. I imagine
easy
easy the
4
life of the
years.
contract. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, if our partners, um, like most of them do, treat them
Mhm.
well, you know, wipe them down, don't take a power hose to wash them, but just
Mhm.
wipe them down, they probably could sit there for another few years.
Mhm. Gotcha. Um, I've got a question here regarding, are you looking for new markets? Now, I imagine you've identified, we'll call it the low-hanging fruit in terms of the hospitality industry. But I think once somebody starts using their imagination, there seems to be so many other applications here. Do you guys have plans down the road to look at other markets that might necessarily be your exact current markets?
So yeah, I mean, there's the personal. We called it the personal pool safe when the
Mhm.
name of the product was actually PoolSafe. Um, I have to be honest with you. This is a massive opportunity in an industry that is, I mean, you look at the travel industry, it is enormous.
Mhm.
And as I alluded to, you know, if we got 2% of market share on 50,000 units, which is 2% of market share, what
Mhm.
happens if we get 5% of market share in
Mhm.
this industry, in the
Mhm.
hotel and resort industry, in the water park industry? We're putting product on the beaches of where cruise ships own the beaches, i.e.
Mhm.
Carnival Cruise Line will go through the Caribbean and they'll stop in Jamaica, they'll stop in Grand Turks. We're in the Grill, we're in Ochos
Mhm.
Rio, we're in Grand Turks, we're in Puerto Rico. You know, the cruise ship market is enormous.
Mhm.
But that tends to be a market that is outsourced by the cruise ship to a group that manages the beach.
Mhm.
So there's a layer that you got to get through.
Mhm.
The hotels are,
Yeah.
you know, independently owned. That's
Mhm.
easy. They might own 1, 2, 3. You get into corporate, totally different world. Get
Mhm.
into corporate, you can get 100 hotels,
Mhm.
which means now you're getting 2,000 units on 100 hotels if it's 20. We're now seeing the number of units that are going into our sites, which we applauded ourselves at 35 units a site, that went to 56, that went to 75, that went to 101.
Wow.
Right? So you get a site that's got 101. We're
Mhm.
having a conversation with a very large owner of amusement properties.
Mhm.
In that call, one individual said, "Yeah, we have 800 premium seating."
Mhm.
So I don't want to not answer the question
Mhm.
by suggesting that it wouldn't be prudent of us to look at other opportunities, but we really, really could win in this opportunity.
Mhm.
And to take our eye off the ball of this, again, as we believe, a massive opportunity, I
Mhm.
think would be a disservice to our shareholders
Mhm.
and a disservice for the use of capital that should be going and building and installing and training and upkeeping and growing in
Mhm.
the industry that we are succeeding in.
Yeah. Yeah. You validated this market segment already, and it seems to be the low-hanging fruit. So best to exploit it as much as you can. I
Yeah, and
agree. I agree.
and I don't like to, I wouldn't use the word exploit.
Mm.
I guess there may be a negative connotation with that. But to provide a value add
Sure.
to our partners,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's really a lot of people, it is getting the word out there. I mean, we had a property that turned over, that a new owner came in, and they didn't know about us, but they knew that the product was in there. And as
Mhm.
the park turned over, they said, "What's that?" And the previous owner said, "It's this." And we got a call. How do we get some
Mhm.
of those?
Mhm.
And that was not, I mean, that just was new management, new owner,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. But once people see it and understand it, they're
Mhm.
very, very curious. The fact that we don't charge them for it, the fact that it's no additional cost, meaning no additional drag on their CapEx, is great. And they can charge whatever they want for the cabana. I mean, that's
Mhm.
not our business. Our
Mhm.
business is, if you charge $50 for premium seating, we
Mhm.
want X. If you
Right.
charge 150 for premium seating, we still only want X.
Mhm.
you know so
Mhm.
if you think that taking a small portion of that revenue away from our partner,
Mhm.
they don't have to do much to up the cabana charge, or a
Mhm.
little bit, for the
Yeah.
value add that we're providing with the Lounge Genie.
Mhm. So, Stephen, I don't know if we answered that. Maybe you did, but like, what typically does one of these things cost per day? Like, how do we view that sort of daily price for the product?
Sure. So it's embedded in the cabana cost. It's embedded in the premium seating. So when you go to the hotel, you're not saying, "Oh, I'd like to rent one of those Lounge Genies."
Mhm.
What happens
Gotcha.
is, I want premium seating. The Lounge
Right.
Genie comes with it. And somebody just flashed something across the bottom of the screen. It's a 4-year revenue share contract, of which we get $15 of that revenue. And that was X in my example. And
Mhm.
if the cabana cost goes up, or, inflation,
Mhm.
um, that's, our partners can charge what they want. We ask for
Right.
that portion of the revenue based on whatever they choose the value of their cabanas or premium seatings are.
Gotcha. So, that $15 isn't split. That's actually your take, no matter what they're charging. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. That makes sense. Okay, a few more questions here. Okay, well, I guess we kind of tackle this, but let's try it again. How do resorts and potential clients find out about your product? How do they typically hear about you guys?
A lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of it is Bob at, the Hilton down the street's got these new things. What are they? Hey, Bob, what's that? It's a Lounge
Mhm.
Genie. Wow, that's pretty cool. How do I get some? Call David. So that helps.
Mhm.
We go to a lot of conferences, or we're
Yeah.
starting to more and more. we've been a stalwart at the World Water Park Association conference, which happens every year in October. Another conference called IAPA, which is just an international amusement and theme park organization, the largest in the world, that we actually won our award in 2019 for Best Innovative Product from IAPA. You know, we are starting to go to the hotel conferences. We're going to walk a lot of floors this year to see where we're going to actually rent space and promote the product. We've only done one hotel show, and that was at the request of Avendra, our partner. So we really haven't gone out there, but it is the trade shows predominantly. We do a bit of marketing in trade magazines as well. But as I alluded to with regards to the stock, you know, the key for us is ensuring that when somebody knocks on our door and wants a number of units, we get them that number of units. If we're spending our money marketing, which we do, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the largest portion of our spend is towards ensuring that we have a full facility of components to ensure that we deliver on the products that our customers are requesting, our partners are requesting.
And Stephen, a question came in around the sort of the cost of the product. What's the most expensive part of the Lounge Genie? Where's your highest cost expense?
So the three highest component cost would be, we have a lot of individual parts for the plastics. So you got two sides, you got a front, you got a lift lid. So, you know, that's in aggregate, that's an expensive portion, even though they're categorized by sides and tops, etc. Metals can be expensive. You know, if Trump pushes through this 25% tariff on aluminum and steel, that might, you know, become a bigger portion of the bill of material. The board, so we have a computer board that is in a safety box inside the unit that manages the call signal and the energy of the product. So the product constantly has to have a pulse, but it also communicates through long-range radio frequency. We didn't build it on a Wi-Fi platform. We actually built it on what was called LoRa, or is called LoRa, which I think was developed in one of the world wars. And effectively, it's an AM radio type of wave, and that's how it communicates. So our boards, these little computer boards, manage the communication from the unit to effectively the Raspberry, the gateway, which sends it to the receiver, which is the 22-inch touchscreen. So that's an expensive, you know, when supply chain became difficult during COVID, that became very expensive because we have to actually source each individual transistor that goes on the board. So I hope that answers your question. So it'd be metals, it'd be plastics.
Yeah, it's a combination of different things.
Yeah, it'd be the board.
Yeah.
Each unit has the board, and we can manage 50 units on one gateway, on one Raspberry. And that 50 units can be displayed on one screen. Anything in excess of that becomes very congested. So if somebody wants 100 units, we can send them 2 gateways and 100 units, and we would send them with two 22-inch touchscreens. We also have parks that are designated 10 in one area, which might be, you know, the giraffe water park area, whatever it may be. And they actually might need more gateways because they'll have 10 units here, 40 units there, 50 units there, and we might have to provide an additional gateway and screen. So that would build up the cost. But that's, you know, that scenario is not the norm.
Yeah, gotcha. Stephen, what do you see as the end game here? What's the logical sort of, what does this business look like in, say, the next 5-10 years?
Well, hopefully it's generating a lot of cash. It's got a beautiful yield. And we continue to grow our business. You know, maybe there's some add-ons, you know, maybe there's something within the hospitality industry that we can sell to now that we have, a pathway to the decision makers. Maybe there's enough cash flow that private equity wants it, right? So that's an exit. I'm not sure, we're up for an exit, but you write a big enough check. I think, most people want you to take the exit.
Sure.
But I do really believe, we have a stock that's trading at 3.5 cents. You throw, for easy math, let's bring the share capital down to 100 million. Let's say we do $1 million in free cash flow that's going to dividend out to our shareholders who have 100 million shares. Effectively, that's let's say a penny a share. Penny a share on a 3.5 cent stock. Penny a share on a 3.5 cent stock that has stickiness of its revenue share model with partners that are 4 and 5 star. I don't think that's going to be a 3.5 cent stock for long. It's just when are we getting to the point of free cash flow? When do we tip the scale that we're generating more revenue than we're spending on putting new units into the field? When that happens, it's going to be an exciting time.
And Stephen, sort of last couple questions here. As investors on our side, what do you think? What would you suggest we pay the most attention to, either metrics or catalysts? I'm not sure. I mean, do you announce contract wins or anything like that? What do you think investors should keep their eyes out for?
So we used to announce contract wins on material contracts. Like last year, we delivered 335 units to a partner, and obviously that's material. And as we start to access, more corporate hotel chains, more corporate ownership in water parks, then the units that will be under contract will be hundreds, not 10s or 20s or 50s. They'll be 300, 500, 800. We will most definitely let our supporters, our shareholders, know that those types of things are happening. Every quarter in our MD&A, page whatever, 2, 3, 4, we explain how many units went into service, how many units came out of service. So that would be something that I personally would pay attention to. I also think that, if we're achieving the type of revenue growth that we expect year over year, or at least that we drive to, then I think the shareholders should expect that, and I think the shareholders should watch that. As one of the participants here alluded to, why is December or the Q4 and Q1, so down on revenue? Well, wouldn't it be great if we got into Australia, got into Indonesia, got into Thailand, the other side of the world, that the sun shines really warm while we're freezing our butts here? I would watch for that, because when we start to make headway into those markets, we start to flatten out the volatility that's in that revenue stream. It's going to be a good day.
Fantastic. And then last question, really open-ended. Stephen, have we missed anything? Is there any key message you want to make sure everybody walks away with today?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody who decided to come and listen to the story. So in that respect, thank you for your time. It is appreciated. I think we've, I can't reach back so far to pat ourselves, and nor do I want to. I think that we've done a pretty good job at recovering from a difficult time for our industry. I think that the supporters that have showed us the love today and continue to feed us, we thank them for that. But they understand what we're doing. They understand we're dedicated to the project. They understand that we know how to stair step towards our end goal, which is cash flowing, which is feeding ourselves, which is building, a broader team. Like I said, a flat org chart where we get a lot of service guys and gals, where we get a lot of people that integrate. And then you have to create, AI. Trust me, we've thought we've looked high and low. How can we incorporate AI? How can we get an agent in there? Does it make sense that we actually put a mic on there and you speak into it? So we have to be creative. But we also cannot afford to take our eye off the ball. We got a product that people love. We're going to improve it, but we're not going to spend time messing around with it because we cannot damage the goodwill that we've created. And the product is a really, really robust, bulletproof, as I alluded to probably multiple times now, product. And I think we're going to win with that. So we're going to stay focused. We're going to use our money wisely. We're going to put more units in the field, and we're going to achieve our goals. And I hope our goals are in line with Kevin and Joanne O and Adam O and all the guys on this and gals on this call.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And thank you so much. We've been speaking with CFO Stephen Glaser, PoolSafe Incorporated. Symbol again is POOL. It should be easy to remember this time of year when everybody's freezing. Stephen, thanks one more time. We look forward to catching up when the next sort of major event happens.
Well, myself and my colleagues appreciate your time, and I hope that we were able to provide you, or I was able to provide you on behalf of my colleagues, a good story.
No,
And
appreciate it.
It's going from a story to reality to commercialization to cash flow. And as the story grows, maybe we'll revisit this conversation.
Very good. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Stephen.
All the
Bye for
best,
now.
everybody.
You bet.
Thanks.